Thank you. So be like church. You got to stand up and sit down and stand up and sit down. Thank you guys very much, Matthew. Thank you for that very, very kind introduction. It is a privilege and a pleasure to join you all this afternoon for lunch. It is great to come together with those that are truly moving this state forward in the right direction, to talk about the work that we have done in the Office of Secretary of State, as well as the most pressing problem I believe that is facing Kentucky, and that is the need to create good paying jobs to help put Kentuckians back to work, and how we can do that together. I want to first take a point of privilege and say thank you to each and every one of you for your patience. I know I was not able to be with you last year when you invited me. We had an unexpected and very tragic passing of a family member of one of my staff. And I know that Representative Arnold Simpson came and pinch hit for me and did a great job. You all welcomed him with open arms, and I want to thank you for being so accommodating. I've told many of you as I've made my way around the room today that when I come to Northern Kentucky, it is coming home. It is traveling back to family. I was born, as we look over the Ohio River, just upriver in Mason County, as the only one of 5 girls that managed to be born where my parents actually grew up. They got married, and my grandmother, who many of you know, Elsie Case, still lives today. Northern Kentucky is home for me because my paternal grandmother, Thelma McHugh, her family was actually from up here in Newport, where we have family that still lives today. So it is exciting to be here with each of you, not just friends, but I do believe indeed family. Growing up, my mama used to tell my 5 sisters and I, there were 5 girls, very loud girls, Alyssa, Abby, Alison, Ashley, and Amy. Every morning as she would work hard to get us dressed and out the door, giving us the breakfast of champions, a Pop-Tart, she would tell us to make this the best day yet. I didn't know then what she was meaning. I just thought it was something quirky that my mama said to bring a smile to each of my sisters' faces. It wasn't until many years later, as I was coming out of a courtroom helping a victim of domestic violence obtain emergency protective order, that I realized what she was saying. She was telling me, just as the rest of my sisters, not to be afraid, to take a chance, and to most importantly, be the change that I want to see in the world. And back in 2011, I realized what she was telling me, and as I looked around state government and the possibility of there being no female voice there, that was unacceptable. And I set out to be that change that I believe we needed here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And thanks to so many of you that are here in this room, indeed, my family, I stand before you today as your Secretary of State, the only female constitutional officer in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and the youngest female Secretary of State in the nation. And I say thank you, Northern Kentucky, for making that happen. It is because of you. Now, it is a privilege to serve as your Secretary of State. The honor is mine to be able to serve as the chief advocate for civic engagement, working with our grandmamas down to our grandbabies so that they realize the power of their voice, their ability to make change, not just at the local, state, but national level as well. Serving as well as your chief business officer, watching over the 700,000 businesses that are registered with the Office of Secretary of State, 200,000 of which are active. And by the way, we hope you go to sos.ky.gov and pay your annual business filing fee that is due. It keeps the lights in the Office of Secretary of State on. Serving as well as your chief election official. It is no quiet time, as you can imagine, right now in the Office of Secretary of State, as the filing deadline is upon us on January 28th for those seeking to be on the primary ballot, watching over our elections to make sure that they are free and fair, and that we are breaking down the barriers to our ballot box. Like the Northern Kentucky Chamber, I've worked hard as Secretary of State to make sure that we are giving the green light to our businesses, that we are growing our economy, especially the small businesses like the clothing store that my grandparents, Omer and Elsie Case, operated in Mason County, Kentucky for over 40 years. It's small business owners like Elliott Smith, who last year opened a nonprofit. Now, you might think, Allison, why are you talking about Elliott Smith? But Elliott Smith is remarkable because Elliott is a sophomore at Henry Clay High School who was the winner of a slogan and essay contest in the Office of Secretary of State. He took his $1,500 prize, turned it around to invest in a nonprofit that he registered with our office called Dream Strings, where he collects used instruments, he refurbishes them, and he gives them to kids in need who don't have the opportunity like he did to learn how to play an instrument. Or it's the amazing work of a youngster who is in 8th grade by the name of Joe Bremer, who last year likewise started his soap business, Joe's Suds and Bars. It is based off of the goat milk that he receives from the farm that he and his family tend to each and every day. It is working with the General Assembly, good people like Representative Arnold Simpson, Dennis Keene, that we have been able to literally make the vision come to life for entrepreneurs young, like Joe and Elliott, and older, like my grandparents. It's been through streamlining and modernizing our statutes, making sure that we are making it easier for businesses to actually comply with tax requirements, that we're clarifying existing law that we know can get burdensome out there, that we are creating new options for businesses to actually form, and that we're streamlining the way businesses interact with state government. Most recently, one key part of making it easier for businesses to interact with state government came as a result of CPAs and many business owners from right here in northern Kentucky speaking with our office with the enactment of House Bill 277. When I was running for the office of Secretary of State and then ultimately took office, we had many business owners and CPAs alike talk to us about the burden that was on the shoulders of business owners to actually file their occupational license tax form. They would have to call and fax, sometimes drive to the numerous locations that their business operated in order to retrieve this form. Kenton County alone, 19 separate taxing districts. That's 19 separate forms. Businesses were overwhelmed. They told me that once they located this form, they were then oftentimes paying a CPA to fill out the numerous forms, more than was actually due and deserved to state government. A CPA actually sent me a picture of thousands of pieces of paper that they had to go through each and every day in order to accommodate their clients. Now, thanks to House Bill 277, we have streamlined the process, and it's with the help and support of business owners and CPAs alike from up here in northern Kentucky that we have been able to collect those occupational license tax forms across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We have put them on our website, onestop.ky.gov. The challenge today is to see how many times I say that. onestop.ky.gov. And you can also find them on our One Stop portal. That is at onestop.ky.gov. You'll be reciting it before the end of the day. This is making it easier for businesses to actually interact with state government. We are likewise working with a task force that we're proud to have many northern Kentucky business owners and CPAs be a part of so that we can create one standardized form. So while they can now locate the form, in the future, they'll be able to fill out not numerous forms, but just one form. It has been in this effort that we've likewise continued to develop and make sure that we are implementing our one-stop portal. We are one of 12 states that has an online portal where businesses can actually go to start and create their business, whether they're looking to begin, expand, or relocate. One of 12 states in the nation, Kentucky is, that offers this ability. 75% time savings and being able to interact with state government online. Now, and further making sure that our businesses are able to have a peace of mind when they interact with state government, it came with pushing and backing and being a significant supporter of legislation known as House Bill 343 last year during the legislative session. How many of you in here have more than one username or password that you keep up with on a daily basis? Raise your hand. You all know it. Now multiply that for businesses. It only increases. And for each and every state agency that is throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky, there is a different username, there is a different password, there's a different identification number. Thanks to House Bill 343, we are now working to consolidate those multiple identification numbers into one single standardized system that will run through our onestop.ky.gov portal. And it will be, I hope, something that eliminates the heartburn and especially the headache that our businesses have to go through. These measures like House Bill 277 and House Bill 343, they are just a prime example of the work we do daily in the Office of Secretary of State to make it easier for our business owners, people like Elliot and Joe, to actually not just survive, but thrive here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That's what it's all about. And as your chief election official, we have worked equally as hard to make sure that our ballot box stays open to all Kentuckians. Making sure, for instance, that no soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, National Guard, Coast Guard ever has to ask, as they did when I traveled over to the Middle East, Secretary, does my vote actually count? Thanks to the passage of Senate Bill 1 last year, a bipartisan measure, we are now giving our military and overseas voters the time and the tools necessary to have their voice and, most importantly, their vote heard back from the battlefield back here in Kentucky at the ballot box. This is important. It's important for people like Captain Sam Arnett, who is in the United States Army, whose wife, Sarah Jane Arnett, won the Military Spouse of the Year award. It is important for people like Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Gannon, who I met. He is a navigator, flew me over Iranian airspace successfully. A navigator for the United States actually the Kentucky Air National Guard. He's from Prospect, Kentucky. This is important for people like Sean George, whose parents, Catherine and Patrick, are from right here in northern Kentucky, from Boone County. I met Sean in Bahrain aboard a Navy mine countermeasure. Sweeps the ocean floors for disaster, waiting to help each and every one of us. That is what this measure is about. That is who this measure is for. And we've continued in that same effort to make sure that we're protecting those across the Commonwealth of Kentucky that participate in our elections through our absentee system, by making sure that their names and, most importantly, their addresses are not known before an election, but rather only made available until after election, so that we can protect the integrity of the election. Their votes not being bought by pills, bills, or dollar bills, but they can exercise their right to vote independently and privately. We've done the same thing for the reason I stand before you today. The inspiration that I had was victims of domestic violence, that I could do more, my voice could be louder for them, by enacting the first ever address confidentiality program that the state of Kentucky has ever seen. It's a program that lets victims of domestic violence register to vote, update their registration without fear of harm, that publicly available document that has their name and address will be made available to that person that they saw in the courtroom, that they stood across from in the courtroom, allowing them to exercise their right to vote without fear that that person will be able to harm them or their loved ones. That's the good work that we have been doing for the past 2 years in the Office of Secretary of State. Truly, from business to the ballot box, it has been all about, and will continue to be, about putting the people of this state first. Now, I come to you today wearing many hats. A sister, a wife, a daughter, a Secretary of State, and yes, the media is here for a reason, a United States Senate candidate. And I will tell you that I love my job as Secretary of State. I love being able to work with our grandmamas down to our grandbabies. But in the effort of following my mother's advice from many years ago that she still gives me each and every day, I am continuing on this journey to make it the best day yet, to become Kentucky's first female United States Senator. Now, I know that Northern Kentucky often only ever gets a fleeting glimpse of candidates when running for an election, but you know all too well, especially those of you in this room, from the students to the businesses, that as Secretary of State, my presence has been known up here in Northern Kentucky, from our civic health roundtables that we held at Northern Kentucky University, to our election advisory meeting, where many in this room were a part of, to the naturalization ceremonies at the federal courthouse that are just down from the street that we have participated in. That is the same approach that I will take as your next United States Senator. We all know the single most pressing problem facing the state of Kentucky, the need for more good-paying jobs. And I'd like to share with you today my vision of how together we can do that. That is what the Northern Kentucky Chamber is all about. Unemployment, underemployment, and indeed economic insecurity, it has plagued this state for too long. It's unacceptable. I believe we must move forward, and starting today with the help of each and every one of you that is in this room, we can do that. We have to recognize the urgency that we must take action, and we must, I believe, seize the moment that is before each and every one of us. I ask you to join me in this effort, because together, we together can move this state, and most importantly, this nation forward. We can't underestimate the magnitude of the challenge that is before us. You all know the statistics. We lost more than 118,000 jobs during the downturn of the economy, 35,000 manufacturing jobs, and 18,000 construction jobs. Our unemployment rate continues to be higher than the national average. We have a jobs deficit here in the state of over 90,000 jobs. That is good, hard-working Kentuckians that are struggling to make ends meet. If you look right now across the state of Kentucky, we have, if you look at the number of children who have been with a parent who has been without a job for more than 6 months, that's increased by over 90%. And today, more than 1 in 4 children lives in poverty. As I stand before you, what I recognize is that this tragedy, and it is a tragedy, it's not just a set of numbers. These are hardworking Kentuckians who, despite their best efforts, despite circumstances that are out of their control, they are not able to provide for their families. It's people like David Copeland, who I had the opportunity to meet in the eastern part of the state. David is a Boilermaker who built his life around his good paying job. He was able, he told me, to propose to his wife, to buy a house, and to build a family with now 3 beautiful kids. When I sat down with David, he told me he lost his job right before Thanksgiving. He now can't put his suitcase in the yard sale because he told me he's going to need it to go find work. These are the hardworking Kentuckians that should and must be at the forefront of each and every one of our minds. As your next United States Senator, my #1 priority is to put Kentuckians, especially people like David Copeland, back to work in good-paying jobs. You here in Northern Kentucky, you know the potential that exists for economic prosperity. But what we all know is that unfortunately Washington, it has been so paralyzed by politics and partisanship and rancor that we haven't been able to unlock that potential up here in Northern Kentucky. Indeed, it has kept this region of the state from getting the much needed assistance it is due and deserved. And at the top of the list, you all here know it's the $3.5 billion Brent Spence Bridge project and the surrounding access highways that are needed. Its importance is obvious. Its economic impact, I believe, equally as obvious. If you look at the drain, especially the economic drain that this area is suffering from. You only know that we need to have not a chatterbox, but a champion in Washington, D.C. The intolerable congestion, it leads to 3.6 million hours of delay. And get this, for every passenger car that is up there, 1.6 million gallons of gas that is wasted. Accidents, they are more than 3.5 times more likely to occur. And you and I both know we can't put a price tag on the human lives that are at stake because we don't have the federal funding we need for this vital Kentucky project. This isn't just an interstate highway. It is a vital national interstate project. 3% of our gross domestic product travels this way. It connects Kentucky from Michigan down to Florida, 8 different states. I know I'm preaching to the choir. Here, I see every head in this audience going the right way. But what we haven't had is someone who is advocating, who is a tireless fighter to bring that funding here and to make sure that we are not doing it through tolls on the backs of Northern Kentuckians and, most importantly, the economy of Northern Kentucky. As your next United States Senator, that's what I will fight for. Now, I understand also, I was so excited to be greeted before I came in by one of my favorite college presidents, President Mearns. And I will tell you that I know the importance of the economic institutions, especially Northern Kentucky, and the role that they play in the vitality of our economy. As your next United States Senator, I will be the champion that we need for promoting our research in our higher institutions and especially jobs training. President Mearns, and especially my family that graduated from Northern Kentucky, taught me how to put my NORs up a long time ago. But it's going to be up to each and, NORs up a long time ago. But it's going to be up to each and every one of you here to join in this. I think Brent wanted a picture of that. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
I will tell you that I have also likewise witnessed the decrease in activity over the last decade in our Northern Kentucky airport. I know how frustrating it is for each and every one of you. Our Northern Kentucky International Airport. And as your United States Senator, I will work tirelessly to make sure that we increase the activity at that very vital and powerful economic engine. Now, my vision, I believe Kentucky families, they deserve better. A good quality of life and a good paying job. My vision, it's a forward-looking plan, a plan that I hope you'll receive a copy of when you leave here today. It's about making sure that we increase the income for each and every one of our families across Kentucky, that we encourage businesses to grow, that we are training our workers not just for the jobs of today, but for the jobs of tomorrow, and that we are letting Kentucky be as it should be, competitively existing across not just here in the United States, but globally competitive. That is what this plan is all about. Now, there's no one silver bullet. You'll see there's multiple pages to this plan. There's no one silver bullet that's going to solve all of the economic woes that face the Commonwealth of Kentucky, but there are solutions, common sense, practical solutions that we can start taking today that will move us forward in the right direction. And I believe that it's about doing the right things with a proper investment over a sufficient period of time, and the opportunities, they are endless for where Kentucky will go. My plan's an action plan. It is about making sure we're advocating for our families and our veterans, that we are cultivating the unique competitiveness of this state, that we are training our workers, that we are invigorating the rural areas of our state, that we are offering better wages, especially for the good-looking women that are all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and that we are negotiating a better deal for the businesses here in this state. Now, to spur economic growth, especially in urban areas like here in Northern Kentucky, I think we have to cultivate the competitiveness that we know exists. We have to tap into the market that we know Washington hasn't allowed to be unlocked. We start by cutting the red tape and allowing our businesses to go about doing what they do best. We've done that in the Office of Secretary of State, and it's time that we have a federal partner that does the same, that doesn't stifle growth, but rather encourages it. That's what business owners, albeit young business owners like Joe and Elliot, deserve. It's about fighting, as I will as your United States Senator, to make sure that we create a federal portal similar to our onestop.ky.gov. Now, y'all didn't get tired on me, did you? Our onestop.ky.gov portal, so that businesses can go about interacting with federal government quicker and easier. And I know you all know the fines that are levied against our business owners incorrectly. As your next United States Senator, it is about making sure we give, for instance, a one-time ability for our business owners to correct federal filings instead of fining them. That's encouraging businesses to do the good work that they do. They're the ones creating the jobs. We must also do more in terms of encouraging entrepreneurship and innovation here all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Now, you all know since the 1940s, advances in science and technology, they have helped to be the reason why we are contributing 50 cents to every dollar added to our nation's gross domestic product. But here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, we rank in the bottom of the nation in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship, STEM, creation of businesses, and yes, self-employment. This is unacceptable. And as your senator, I will fight to give tax credits to make sure that companies have the encouragement to invest in R&D. There must be, I also believe, federal funds that help to bolster that so that we have training, entrepreneurial training occurring at our public colleges and our high schools across the Commonwealth. I believe, as I look out at this skyline, that it is most important, especially up and down the Ohio River, that we encourage and increase the manufacturing, the decline in manufacturing that we have seen. After dramatic growth in the 1990s, what we have seen over the last decade is that manufacturing jobs have all but plummeted here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Kentucky has lost nearly a third of its factory employment during that period. It's a loss, each of us know, of good paying jobs. I will fight to expand capital for investments to be made here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and to make sure that we are giving and encouraging, instead of tax breaks that ship our jobs overseas, encouraging businesses, tax credits to stay right here and employ good, hard-working Kentuckians. These are jobs that we can't afford to lose. And I want to talk about a topic that I know the Federal Chamber and the State Chamber, and I believe the Northern Kentucky Chamber, is in line with. If we are going to be where we need to be internationally, we need to level the playing field with China. We must make sure that our Kentucky goods are playing on the same field as those that are abroad. China, they are a major economic partner. They are an emerging superpower on the world stage. But we must have a fair, productive relationship that is based on trust, respect, and I do believe a mutually beneficial economic prosperity. Now, Senator McConnell and I disagree on this point. He doesn't believe that there is a problem with the trade deficit. I couldn't disagree more. Between 2001 and 2011, the United States trade deficit with China alone, it displaced 35,000 Kentucky jobs. 35,000 Kentucky jobs. During that same period, the trade deficit, it cost the nation 2.1 million manufacturing jobs. If we are able to level the playing field with China, we will be able to provide, for instance, for the priorities of Kentucky, like the Brent Spence Bridge. If you only look at alleviating and eliminating and curbing currency manipulation, for instance. The Chinese government keeps their currency artificially low. It helps their products, but it puts Kentucky and other American products at a disadvantage. The Economic Policy Institute says that if we address currency manipulation, we will interject 4.7 million American jobs. $470 billion into our economy in gross domestic products, and we can actually help reduce our deficit by $165 million. What are we waiting for? I strongly support and will aggressively push to make sure that we lower the threshold for currency manipulation violations and that we strengthen and increase the penalties for such violations. As your senator, I will push for fair treatment with China. We also must do more to protect our intellectual property across the United States, particularly our defense technology. Each year, IP theft, especially and mainly by China, we are losing $300 billion, more than 1 million jobs. That has an impact. These are jobs that we should have right here in the state of Kentucky. There's more that we can do. We can make sure to enforce these IP protections through trade agreements, economic pressure, and multinational dispute resolution, things we should have already been doing if we had a champion in Washington, D.C. instead of a chatterbox. I think we also must address the skills gap that exists here in Kentucky. The skills gap that exists between the skills our current workers have based on the demand with the jobs that are available by our employers. I will be that champion for the jobs legislation, the jobs training legislation that we need in order to fill that gap. Now, there are many more things that we can do to lift up our economy. Increasing the minimum wage from $7.25 to $10.10 an hour, that's what we need to be doing. And it actually makes good business sense to be doing it, as it lifts 1 in 4 Kentuckians' wages, as it increases our gross domestic product and makes sure to increase annual earnings by 30%, and most importantly, creates 2,200 jobs here in the state of Kentucky. We must likewise, I believe, make sure we close the pay equity gap that exists all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. 79 cents for every dollar is not appropriate for a woman to earn for a man's comparable work. We must lift the women of the Commonwealth up, and by doing so, by closing that pay equity gap, what we see and what we will be able to achieve, 78 more weeks of food for a woman if she would earn as much as a man. 8 more months of mortgage and utility payments, 14 more months of rent, and 2,400 gallons of gasoline. That is priceless. There is more earning that we can help for the women of the state and in this nation. We can increase their earning power by likewise giving them flexibility in terms of their workplace choices, by making sure that they have affordable child care available to them. These are the smart things to do, not just on behalf of the people of this state, but on behalf of business. Now, I will conclude with this. At the end of last year, I had the opportunity to come back to Northern Kentucky, to be with family, to tour the Seligman Distributing Company. I don't know how many are familiar with Seligman. They distribute everything from Budweiser to Monster Energy drinks. It is a family-owned business. Ruth Doring, the daughter of Charles Seligman, along with her 2 daughters, runs it. It is an 80-year-old family business right here in Northern Kentucky and Walton County. It has over 32 trucks operating throughout 10 counties in the Commonwealth, 125 good-paying jobs. As I was there, I was reminded of what my grandparents' business was all about. Indeed, customers were family and staff were your friends. That's the atmosphere there. As I sat down with Ruth and I talked about how we not only sustain her business, but we help to grow it, I was disheartened when she said, "Allison, I've received encouragement, especially from your office at the state level, but I've never gotten that same encouragement at the federal level." This must change. It is time that we have someone in Washington, D.C. that instead of looking to special interest and the Washington partisan politics to find the answers, realize it's the best and the brightest, the people of Kentucky, and especially our businesses are the strength. We need someone in Washington that actually brings more Kentucky to Washington. There's not enough of it there now. I will tell you, I will never forget And I have 4 very loud sisters that always remind me. A grandmother who is always echoing in my thoughts, and now, thanks to texting on my phone, I will never forget where I came from. Most importantly, I will never forget what I'm about and who I represent. And that's each and every one of you all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. A job delayed only becomes more difficult. Time is of the essence. My hope is that each of you here will join in me in this effort, join with me in this effort, so that we can truly make Kentucky have its best day yet. Thank you all very, very much. To the Chamber, thank you for having me. Thank you all.